start in South Australia, where new pictures are coming in of a plane tragedy that's left 3 men dead. The experienced pilots were on a training flight when the light aircraft crashed near Renmark. 9 News reporter Eliza Rugg is at the scene for us. Eliza, what can you tell us about the men who've passed away?
Good morning, Davina. Well, I can tell you, as you said, these 3 men were very experienced pilots, all from Adelaide. On board included the chief pilot of Rossair, his name Martin Scott, as well as another pilot, Paul Dorr, and also a CASA flight operations inspector. His name was Stephen Guerin. Now, we're also seeing the newest pictures come into the newsroom from our news chopper of the crash site. You can see how much of an impact this crash must have had. There are pieces of the wreckage strewn across the shrubland where this plane was found, about 4 kilometres west of the Renmark aerodrome. You can also see that there are pieces of charred wreckage as well. This means that there must have been a fire at some stage. Investigators will be spending the day there going through the evidence and trying to piece together exactly what went wrong. What we do know at this stage is that the plane left from the Renmark aerodrome around 4 o'clock. An emergency beacon was activated, and then about 3 hours later, that's when police crews actually found the wreckage and inside the bodies of those 3 pilots. Now, the company Rossair has come out today and says that it will be grounding all flights across Australia in the wake of this tragedy. It's also vowed to work very closely with investigators to try and piece together what happened. We're hoping to hear from them a little bit later when they hold a press conference in Adelaide. Davina.
Terrible tragedy, Eliza. Thank you.
3 experienced pilots on board a check and training flight that was supposed to be routine.
Routine in Australia, routine around the world, but clearly something went wrong. There was a tragedy.
And it appears whatever caused the tragedy was sudden and catastrophic. The 3 veteran pilots stood no chance of surviving the impact. One of them was 65-year-old veteran aviator Paul Dorr. The devoted father and grandfather was retiring from his role as chief pilot at a Parafield-based operator and taking up casual flying with Rossair. His love of flying, a passion he shared with his brother Nigel.
I'm going to miss him heavily, but he's left a wonderful legacy, not only to the family, but to the whole of mankind.
Mr Dorr was also a dedicated volunteer at the South Australian Aviation Museum.
He flew for a number of organisations here in South Australia and a very, very experienced pilot. He died doing something that he absolutely loved and adored.
The flight was to formally induct Mr Dorr. Alongside him was Rossair's chief pilot, Martin Scott. The 48-year-old was a husband, father and much-loved colleague.
Not just the pilot group, but the entire organisation, the people, were feeling it today and yesterday, and we'll feel it going forward. This is a significant event for us.
The 3rd victim was father of 3 and Civil Aviation Safety Authority Inspector Stephen Guerin.
A very, very highly regarded pilot, a fine inspector, and meticulous as a regulator.
While little is known about what went so horribly wrong, flight tracking data sheds light on the large amount of ground the plane had covered in the hours before the crash. With another crew in control, the Cessna took off at 7:46 yesterday morning, flying 2 return charter services between Parafield and the Beverley mine. It was then flown from Parafield to Rossair's Adelaide airbase before the 3 victims boarded for the training flight to Renmark, crashing minutes into the return leg. Within 3 hours, the crash site was found and worst fears confirmed. Alice Monfries, 9 News.
For the latest, we have reporters live at the crash scene and Rossair's Adelaide headquarters. First to Edward Godfrey near Renmark, and Eddie, expert aviation investigators arrived there late today.
Yeah, they did, Brenton. In fact, they've just wound up for tonight, driving away from the scene, which is about 2 kilometres behind us, behind this roadblock in dense scrubland. It was quite late today, as you say. It was at about 3 o'clock this afternoon when investigators from the Australian Transport Safety Bureau arrived here at the scene. They will be conducting the main investigation into this tragedy together with the assistance of South Australian Police. It's made up of a team of 5 officials who've travelled from Adelaide, Sydney and Canberra. They spent this afternoon examining the wreckage, and you can see from aerial pictures they pay close attention to several items of interest, among that wreckage including a yellow box, which we understand is the electronic locator which would have activated yesterday afternoon when something went horribly wrong. We do understand, however, that this particular aircraft does not usually carry a flight recorder. Now, the 3 victims, as we've heard, are very experienced, very respected pilots. What they were doing yesterday afternoon was something they've each done many, many times before. The big question for investigators, the question that everyone would like answered, is just with all of that experience and all of that knowledge, how did this happen?
This is terribly surprising. You've got 3 very experienced pilots on board, so something significant occurred. Finding out what happened in this tragedy is important, so we can prevent these things happening in the future.
It's unclear how long this investigation is going to last. It could be days before the wreckage is removed, taken away for closer examination. What we do know is that the Chief Commissioner from the ATSB and police will speak to the media tomorrow morning and tell us what they know so far.
Thank you, Eddie. And Rossair's operations remain grounded tonight as a result of the tragedy. Jared Brevy, staff there have been left devastated.
Yes, Brenton, this tragedy has had a profound impact on this charter company based here at the Adelaide airport, with 2 of its staff losing their lives. Now, Rossair currently has a fleet of around 10 aircrafts. This is the company's first fatal accident in more than 50 years of operations. The company's CEO has offered condolences to the victims' families and says he's doing everything possible to provide support. There is also counselling being offered to staff. Today it was confirmed the Cessna that went down near Renmark is 37 years old. The CEO was asked about its maintenance records. He says, to his knowledge, they were satisfactory.
We've had an impeccable safety record. We have the people, the processes, the resources to make sure our operations run safely. We've never had a major issue or an incident.
Now, the company says it's working with investigators to get to the bottom of exactly what has caused this tragedy. It's unclear at this stage when Rossair will be able to resume operations.